So about 4 years ago, a TV show came out on Stars starring J.K. Simmons called Counterpart. It went for about 2 seasons. It was an excellent show, though a bit of a slow burn because it is a clandestine spy thriller, not a lot of action, so a lot of espionage type stuff. In the show is about a parallel universe. On the eve of the fall of the Berlin Wall, a scientific experiment splits the universe into two. It creates a nexus point, and history changes beyond that point. But up until that point, both universes share a common history. And one of the universes, which we'll call the altered universe versus our prime universe. In the altered universe, a virus breaks out that eradicates a major part of their population. And the doorway, there is a doorway between these two universes, and it creates a Cold War because the alternate universe believes that the prime universe created the virus to wipe them out. It basically creates a new Cold War. But what happens in this altered universe is because of the virus, the people in that world actually start surrendering their rights to the governments to protect them. So instead of embracing capitalism, like what has mostly happened here in the Prime Universe, the alternate universe doubles down on socialism and communism. A new Cold War. Once again, it becomes capitalism versus communism. And that, of course, in no way mirrors what's going on in real life right now with us surrendering our rights to government. But whatever, moving on. So what happens is in this world is because they share a common history, a lot of the characters exist in both worlds and have similar jobs or similar upbringings. Of course, that changes because the virus wipes a lot of people out. So what the alternate world does is they start taking children at a young age who are children of important people in the Prime Universe, and they will train them to be their clones and assassins so that one day they will sneak across to the other world and kill their doppelganger and replace them, and now they have a spy in the high-ranking government in the Prime Universe. And in the second season, the show only goes 2 seasons, but it's an excellent show. I'm not giving off any major spoilers here, so don't be afraid of what I'm saying. In the second season, they explore the history of one of these characters. And in one of these characters, they're talking to the parents when the girl is like 10 years old. And the government gives them an option. We're going to take your kid, but we're going to pay you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you live a comfortable life. But we're going to take your kid. You're never going to see her again because we're training her to be an assassin. Or we can just kill you now and we're going to take your kid anyways. So the father of this girl is very upset by this. He's not a communist. He hates the government. So he's very much against this, but there's nothing he can do. The option is live comfortably or die, but either way, you're losing your daughter. So naturally, you would think this would make him hate the government even more. So they take his kid away. Daughter becomes an assassin and a major character in the show. But then they revisit this family 20 years later, this couple who had their kid taken away. And the father at this point is very different. So they're trying to find the daughter through the father, and the father is now wholly protective of state secrets. He is now giving his life to protect the state in their motives of what they did with his daughter in her secret identity. And the interesting thing about this is he hated the government. He hated the government that was taking his daughter away. But now 20 years later, he suddenly became a true believer. Why? Why did this happen? How did he move from being a rebel anti-government punk to being a true believer who supports the state? And it's actually a pretty simple answer. And it's something that Yuri Bezmenov spoke about in his famous interview that he gave about 40 years ago. Now, this interview is available on YouTube, but it's about a 35, 40-minute interview. You will not be able to find the entire interview in one video. Instead, you have to find like 6 to 10-minute chunks separated onto separate topics. I don't know why you can't find the entire interview in one piece. You can actually pretty much see the entire interview in all these chunks, but you have to search for it. But what he spoke about is demoralization. And demoralization is basically how they weaken the mental foundation of people's beliefs. And so what happens is this father lost everything in his life. He lost his daughter that he loved so much. And because of this loss, 20 years later, when he's confronted with the ideas of the travesty of this loss, he cannot, under any circumstance, allow the thought that he was lied to, that something was taken from him. So instead, he has to double down on the sacrifice. He has to believe this, the sacrifice that he made, of losing his life, losing his daughter, losing everything that he loved, because of course, family falls apart when something like this happens. But he has to believe that the sacrifices that he made had to have been worth it. So you cannot tell him that the government that took his daughter away was somehow the bad guys. He has to believe that the government that forced that sacrifice upon him did something good, that his sacrifice provided something good in the world. He has to believe that. And so what happens is when someone is confronted with the exposure of a massive lie like this, there's basically two ways they can go. They can go with accepting their hatred and going against the people that wronged them, or they can double down on the lie. And no matter what, it's going to get violent. They can be violent against the people who wronged them, or they can be violent against the people who expose that they have been wronged. And that is what you actually see more often than not. Mark Twain specifically spoke about this. He said that it is easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they have been fooled. People will double down and defend the lie rather than admit that they have been wrong, that they have been fooled in some way. And this is what Yuri Bezmenov was talking about in this famous interview. He specifically said that you have to demoralize people. And demoralize is not a word that he was using in the way we know it colloquially. He's using it more as its actual meaning in the idea of morals and breaking their understanding of morals. So they have been completely demoralized, as in their morals just evaporate. And so what he's speaking about is how once someone has been thoroughly demoralized, there is no amount of facts, there is no amount of reason, there is nothing you could present them with that can restore their morality. And so this is something very much on how the left runs their ideologies. Everything that the left stands for, is based on feelings. None of it is based on fact or reason or understanding, because that goes against feelings. And we can see this a lot. We've known this for a long time, that people's opinions do not change based on fact. You cannot change using facts. No amount of facts cannot change an opinion that was not created on a factual basis in the first place. And most opinions are based on feelings. And the left uses this understanding, and they base everything that they stand for on feelings. This is generally why the left is a monolith, because they exist on these feelings, and feelings are very easy to manipulate, and you can easily push this monolith the way you want to go by changing words, changing understandings. All you have to do is attack people's feelings. And if we want to bring this into present day, we can talk about the lockdowns and the events of the past 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. And we can talk about vaccine hesitancy. Now, a recent Harvard study came out about a month ago showing that Vaccine hesitancy is not based on feelings. Vaccine hesitancy, the people who are most vaccine hesitant generally are far more informed than anybody who ever got the vaccine. People who are hesitant actually know why they are hesitant. They've seen the studies, they understand the science, and they are actually implementing something called informed consent. People who just went out to get the vaccine did it because people were telling them, oh, you have to get the vaccine. It's dangerous if you don't. You can kill grandma. They were doing things like, oh, you have to get the vaccine because you don't know how rare it's going to be, how hard it's going to be how hard it is for you to get the vaccine tomorrow. So if you see the opportunity to get the vaccine today, you better take it because it may not be available tomorrow. These are all opinions attacking. These are all stances attacking your feelings. And so now, the past month, more and more studies have started coming out. More and more revelations from the CDC, from the WHO, from all these so-called scientific agencies are actually starting to admit, although they're not using those words, they're just hiding it, in paragraph 7 or whatever, but they're starting to show that we have been lied to for the past year and a half. I think it was, I don't know who originally said it, but what is the difference between a conspiracy theory and breaking news? 6 months. And so we were all called conspiracy theories for talking about all this actual science, about being informed on these studies. We've been talking about them for a year for longer, and we were all called conspiracy theories. And now all these studies are starting to come out saying that, hey, we were absolutely right about everything, and they just refused to admit it. And how are people responding to it? Yes, of course, there are going to be a few occasional people who will realize, holy shit, I've been lied to for the past year and a half. Maybe what these crazy right-wingers have been saying, maybe they were right the entire time. You know what? Maybe they actually are turning the frogs gay. Maybe, I don't know how to respond to this. And that will be the red pill moment. The red pill is like the chicken pox, though. The red pill is painful. So the earlier you get red pilled, the better. Because if you get the chicken pox when you're young, it barely hurts you. You barely remember it even happened. But if the older you get, the longer it takes for you to get the red pill, the more shame that's going to be involved, the harder it's going to be to actually get red pilled, because you are so ingrained, as Yuri Bezmenov said, you are so demoralized that it's almost impossible to come back from that. Getting the chicken pox as an adult may as well be fatal for many people. Getting red pilled as an adult is very hard for many people. So I got red pilled early on in the Obama administration. So it was pretty easy for me. I got red pilled around the time of Gamergate, because Gamergate, for a lot of people I know, was their red pill moment. They started realizing, wait a minute, this stuff that I consume, why was it ever, what's going on here? That was Gamergate. Why are you talking about this? That was Gamergate for a lot of people. That was a lot of people's red pill moment. For a lot of people, it's going to be these COVID vaccines. But like I said, it's not going to be for that many. It's not going to be for a large percentage. For most people, they are going to fight back because they are not going to want to admit that they've been lied to. They will double down to defend the people that lied to them. The easiest example is Geraldo Rivera, the so-called Republican. He's on Fox News. I don't know what channel he's on. I don't watch mainstream media. But Geraldo Rivera recently came out and started threatening people with violence. Started saying, if you don't get the vaccine, I'm going to attack you. I'm going to punch you in the face. He has gone completely insane. He is threatening physical violence on people who are not sick simply because they haven't gotten the vaccine. And this is what you're going to start seeing. This is what's going to happen for a lot of people. They will start getting extremely violent. You've already seen it from a lot of people, because they cannot be convinced that they were lied to. They will double down to protect the lie. And lefties, generally, there's no coming back for people on the left. The right, the right is a bit easier because the right is not a monolith. The left is a monolith. The right is not, because the right generally has principles. And when things go against their principles, they will push back on it. That's why the right is generally very divided. The left stands together. The right, we have in the Republican Party, there are people on the left in the Republican Party. There are centrists on the Republican Party. There are right-wingers in the Republican Party. Donald Trump is not right-wing. Donald Trump is mostly left-wing. I am a Trump supporter. I'm not a Republican. I don't support the Republican Party. Most people in the Republican Party I disagree with, but there are a few Republicans I do support. I don't support any Democrats. That's why I constantly attack the Democrats. But I am a Trumplican. I wear a Trump hat to show it off. And of course, so there are things that Trump did that I disagree with. Trump, I understand why he pushed Operation Warp Speed. These vaccines would not exist without Operation Warp Speed. But Trump pushed Operation Warp Speed because he wanted to do everything he could to get people's lives back to normal. And he figured that if the vaccines came out, these left-wing governments, left-wing state governments, which he does not have control over. The president runs the federal government, not the state government. So he figured if the vaccine came out, these left-wing state governments would let up and allow people to get back to their lives. Well, that's not happening. California is locking back down. We're starting to hear that these other blue states are going to start locking down again next month. Like I said, people are going to defend this because they're going to get violent. They're going to say, all you unvaccinated people are why we're back to lockdowns. You should all die, and I hope you die. That's what's going to happen. It's already happening. You're seeing it happen. But like I said, I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm still not going to get the vaccine. Just because Trump made it happen, just because the vaccines is a win for Trump. In fact, I think it's going to end up being a loss for Trump. Because I think this vaccine is... I'm not going to go there because this video is going to get deleted from YouTube. But Trump can say all he wants that I should get the vaccine. Ron DeSantis, the guy I really support, says I should get the vaccine. I'm not going to get the vaccine simply because I agree with these guys and they tell me to do it. No, I'm going to use informed consent. I've seen the studies. I understand the risks. I'm pretty healthy. I'm not getting the vaccine because the risk of coronavirus is negligent for me. And that's a personal choice I've made between me and my doctor. My doctor even says I should get the vaccine, but I'm not listening to him in this case anyways. But my whole point is, these people will get violent. They will not accept a red pill. They will not allow anything that will tell them that they were lied to. They will do everything they can to somehow convince themselves that the sacrifices they made during the past year and a half had to have been worth it. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their friends and families. They've maybe even lost family members. It does not matter. They haven't been able to go to funerals because of it. Does not matter. They have to believe that the sacrifice was worth it. They have to believe that what they gave up, because they are selfish. The left is selfish. Most people are selfish. In fact, everyone is selfish. That's why capitalism works. Capitalism assumes everybody's selfish. But that's a previous video I already did. These selfish people have to believe that what they sacrificed is worth it. They have to be able to feel that they are self-righteous. You can get people to commit all sorts of heinous, atrocious acts on others if they can do it with a feeling of righteousness behind it. Someone like Geraldo Rivera, threatening to attack people. Anyways, this is a pretty depressing video I did this week. All right, that's it for this week. Do all the things that the YouTube algorithms like. Have a good night, guys.